Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're on the Update Apex Predators dev server, and we're having a look at the aviation portion of the dev server. One thing to note, since this is going to be the first video that you see out of a series of videos looking at the dev server, is all of this stuff is work in progress. There is a lot of different things which are definitely not finished. A lot of the flight models are definitely not finished, and even a lot of the visual models for the ground vehicles are not finished. So understand, until it hits live, it is not completely done. There will be videos on pretty much everything when it comes to the dev server over the next little bit, so if you are looking for a specific video on a vehicle, it will be out over the next few days. This is obviously the F-16A. This is one of the poster boys of the update, along with a few others, and it is coming to America and also confirmed for Israel and probably for China, even though it's not on the dev server. The F-16A has access to a bunch of new features that haven't really been seen before, and also a bunch of old ones, which many people enjoy. The vehicle gets access to a bunch of hardpoints, it gets access to 6 AIM-9Ls, and also a 20mm M61A1, which is quite nice. One of the new features it has access to is a drop tank, so this is now a new mechanic that you have in the game. Basically, you are able to carry extra fuel on the vehicle, and if you want to get rid of it, you can do. Pretty much as simple as that. These new vehicles are very hungry when it comes to fuel, so generally what will happen is you want to take pretty much full fuel, and then once you get closer to the action, if you have a drop tank, it might be worth kind of getting rid of it. But you can see here that you have the drop tank. It's not fully modeled yet, but they have added a key in the controls so you can get rid of it, and that means that you can fight with perfect flexibility on top of everything. So it's being demonstrated on the F-16A, but understand it will come to other vehicles as well as time goes on. Other things that the F-16 has access to is CCIPs and also CCRPs, of course. It has countermeasures, it has access to a bunch of other stuff like guided bombs, also standard dumb bombs, rockets, and incendiary stuff. The actual engine which is available on the F-16 is the Pratt & Whitney F-100 PW220. I've got to say, when it comes to this general machine, it feels really nice to fly, but also at the same time has definitely not got its flight model sorted. It's got a few issues, I'd say, after testing, but hopefully we'll see if it irons itself out. The actual rank 7 premium for America is the A6E Tram. This one is supposed to be a ground attacker or a strike aircraft, as you can see, but the vehicle has access to a pretty stellar air-to-air loadout. You can carry 3 AIM-9Ls plus a 20mm Mark 11 Mod 5 with 750 rounds of ammo. It's also a slightly lower BR than some of the rank 6 premiums which is in the game, which are kind of funny. It does get access to countermeasures, all-aspect missiles, and for the ground striking portion, which it's supposed to be for, it has dumb bombs, also guided bombs, and rockets and napalm as well. So overall, not too bad as an overall look, and I'm sure it'll do well in many different areas. The vehicle itself is powered by 2 engines. They are the Pratt & Whitney J52 P8As. From general testing, it's not actually that maneuverable as a vehicle, but it does have access to all the other factors that are quite nice, especially for strike aircraft. So I think this will be quite fun to play. We'll have to see how it goes going forward. The Germans get access to a rank 7 premium, but not a standard tech tree vehicle yet. It has been confirmed that the Germans will get a Tornado, so look forward to that one. The other Tornado we have is obviously for the British right now, but this is the rank 7 premium. It's the MiG-21 Lazur M. This is basically a direct copy of the MiG-21 Bissau that we have here. It does have an internal system, which is the Lazur M, but when it comes to in terms of like War Thunder, the Lazur M right now isn't really something that can be used. I talked about it in a previous video when we had a look at the leaks for these vehicles, so you know, if you want to check it out there, you can do. So it has all the BIS niceties. So it has access to 6 R60MKs, all aspect missiles. It has access to the 25-300 engine, which is really good too, and also the cannon and rocket CCIP with, of course, the Sapphire radar on top of it. So overall, not too bad. It has some quite good stuff on it. The rockets, the incendiary, and of course the standard bombs. I feel like most people are going to use this as an air superiority fighter though, because its ground ordnance is not great. It does also get access to countermeasures while also bringing everything else along, so it should be a completely fine vehicle. The USSR get access to a few separate things. So the first one is the premium. The premium is the MiG-23ML. This is very similar to the M and the MLD. It's more similar to the MLD though, because it has access to the 72 countermeasures on it, and also access to the good old R60Ms. So you get the R60Ms, you get the R23s, and also R24s. So you can pretty much just bring whatever you feel like and have a good time with it. Also gets a bunch of ground ordnance too, including the KH-23Ms, which are quite nice to use. Not really as good as the MiG-27K, but c'est la vie. You know, at least it's something at the end of the day. It does get all the nice bells and whistles of high-ranking aircraft as well, and also at 11.3, it is very much a top BR premium, so this is going to be a baptism of fire, I feel like, for a lot of players, and we'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, it's got the variable swept wings, of course. It's incredibly similar to the MiG-23 MLD, so that's the kind of standard to it. It does have access to the R35-300 Tumansky engine as well, with 10,000 kgf of afterburning thrust. And the reason why someone would buy something like this is, of course, the MiG-29. The MiG-29 is, I would say, the main poster boy of this update at this moment, just because it has access to some absolutely crazy munitions, which are definitely a step up from what we've seen before. All the stuff that's on the F-16 is already in the game, just not as, like, or at least munitions-wise, but it's just not as, you know, on a crazy platform. The MiG-29 is a crazy platform and also gets access to new technology. Now, one thing to note, especially when it comes to the R73s that are on this thing, they are looking for feedback on whether these things should be added. If you don't know what the R73 is, it's an upgraded R60. It has insane stats, so you can see lock-in rear aspect 25, it's an all-aspect 4-kilometer missile, it has a launch range of 8 kilometers, 2.5 Mach, and 40 Gs overload. This would be the best, if not the second best IR missile in the game, by a long way. It is quite susceptible to flares right now, so that may be the way of countering it. So that is something that this gets access to. It also gets R27s, it gets 2 sets of them. It gets the IR one, which has an all-aspect lock of 6 kilometers with a 30 G overload, and also the R version, which is a semi-active radar homing one with IOG with DL. Which also has a really good overload and also is incredibly fast and has a launch very long guidance time. So all of these missiles are great. It also gets R60Ms, so you can kind of stock grind with those. Bombs and rockets and incendiaries galore. It has a lot of really nice features, plus also a 30mm GSH-31, 2 engines to boot, the Klimov RD-33s, and countermeasures. They're also large caliber countermeasures as well, so they should be pretty useful. One thing I also want to show that this has, kind of how the F-16 has a drop tank, this one also has a new feature in the game, which you know, you haven't generally seen. You can see the air intakes, they actually close and open depending on your speed, especially when you're on the ground, so that's a nice little like visual model. You can see them opening there. Pretty overall good to see, and then also the top one's closed, so just like nice little physical animations, which I think generally, you know, look good upon. So you see the target over there? We'll set the R-73, and I'm looking this way. Well, guess what? You can move it with the good old pilot. So if you like pulling up, and then if you're pulling over here, as long as it's like that, you don't actually have to be looking at the target with the nose of the plane to launch the missile at it. It actually is based off of the pilot and not necessarily off the plane itself. So you can see if we drag the plane over here, as long as it's in the circle, we can do stuff like that and toss it over. It's a crazy mechanic, and we're gonna have to see how it goes. There's no way that this is the kind of final setup for it. I'm sure that they'll do some different things. By the way, the air brake looks like this on the back, which is pretty cool. I do like the air brake of this, but as I said, this machine, especially the flight model of it, it's not fully finished yet, and with systems like it has on it, it's looking incredibly powerful though. For Britain, you have 3 separate vehicles. So you got the F-4J. This has access to pretty much all the stuff that the American F-4J has access to, so it doesn't actually have the gun on board, so you have to bring the gun pod with the GAU-4 on it. There is slight differences between this one and the American one. First of all, this one's premium, and it's a rank 7 premium. It also gets access to the AIM-9Gs and the Sky Flashes, which of course are the semi-active radar homing missiles which the British use. It has very good missile guidance time, good overload, and also of course with the radar that's on this thing, especially in the pulse Doppler mode, it can be very, very useful. The ANA PG-59 with the look down capability. You also have all of the crazy CCIPs you would ever want, and to follow that you have bombs, you have rockets, and everything else. So not too bad in general for the vehicle. In order to, or the reason to play something like this is to get something like the Tornado. So this Tornado is nowhere near finished. That's got to be said. It doesn't have access to a bunch of features that it usually would have access to, such as the countermeasures on it, so don't worry, this thing is not going to be an 11.3 without countermeasures. We're not an F-104J or anything like that, but the GR1 is more designed for ground pounding instead of air superiority, where the F-16 is more of a multi-role vehicle and the MiG-29 is specifically designed for air superiority. So the GR1 gets a lot of features which are not present on other vehicles, like it has the thermal pod, which is great for its guided bombs. It does get the chaff right now, but it obviously isn't fully modeled. It gets dumb bombs, it gets access to Mark 13s, and of course paveway 3s. It does get access to 2 AIM-9Ls, so you do have a little bit of kind of like air defense, I suppose you'd say it, or air aggression, but it's mostly designed around its abilities to guide in bombs on the ground. It does have some pretty cool features though. First of all, this is the main vehicle out of the 3. So the MiG-29, the F-16 actually has its cockpit modeled right now, and it gets access to 2 27mm Mauser BK-27s. These can pen nearly 50mm at specific angles, and also have access to a practice tracer shell. So there you go. And also APHE, so it can do damage to not just ground targets, but also air targets at the same time. It also has a feature that only a few other vehicles have in the game, which is really cool to see, and that is a thrust setup. So a few of the Swedish vehicles, what they can do on the ground is they're actually able to reverse their thrust. They're able to kind of go backwards and move themselves around if they want to, and it's really nice, right? But you can't use it in the air. Well, the Panavia Tornado takes it an extra step and means that you can actually use it in the air. So let's say that you are setting up for a bomb drop, like you are, you're like on the ground here, or like looking at the ground or whatever. By the way, as I said, you can like do this. Let's say you're like setting up a bomb to like shoot there, and you know you're going too fast. What you can do is you can actually slow down. So if you just hit the reverse thruster on, it shuts off the afterburners and it actually pushes the force of the engines the opposite direction, so therefore it slows you down, which is pretty cool. It also might be a way of trying to dodge a thermal signature as well, but I don't think that's going to work too well. So yeah, it gets access to a pretty cool feature, which you don't really see anywhere else. It also has quite a nice air brake on it, which is lovely to see. And also, this won't be the only version of the Tornado that we see when it comes to the game. So there's going to be a bunch of other ones that will be around in other areas. The Sea Harrier FRS-1 is coming in. This is going to be a squadron vehicle for the British. It has 230mm. It's very similar to the GR3, which we have in the standard tech tree. Has access to Mark 103s, the Royal Pegasus engines. But the main difference between this and something like the GR3 is it has access to AIM-9Ls. Now, it was confirmed on the dev stream that this will have access to 4 AIM-9Ls instead of 2, which it has on the dev server, so just understand that and its BR. Also has access to countermeasures, of course, and a bunch of different CCIPs and RPs. What's also cool about the vehicle is it has the Ferranti Blue Fox radar, and this one's really good. It has look up, look down, head on, IFF. It has all of the weird and wonderful features that you want from a modern radar. So I would say that's pretty nice. This is also coming in as a squadron vehicle, which means that all you have to do is put Squadron RP into it, and you'll be able to unlock it over time. The Japanese right now don't have access to anything new in terms of a new vehicle, but it has been confirmed that Japan will get new vehicles in the future. Maybe this update, maybe later on, but they will get some Rank 8 stuff. They will also get a Rank 7 Premium to go along with it. One thing to note is they have bumped the F-4EJ Kai up to Rank 8 for now, and the reason they've done that is because they want you to spend more money researching ranks, but also because they've added AIM-9Ls to it. So the F-4EJ Kai has 4 AIM-9Ls and then 2 AIM-7Fs, and you can bring the GAL-4s as well if you want, if you like a bit of BERT. So that's the state of the Japanese tree. I'm sure they'll add another vehicle soon. China gets a premium vehicle, but does not get a vehicle to research it with. The vehicle is the J7D. This is incredibly similar to a MiG-21 BIS. The major features of it are pretty much exactly the same shape. It has access to the Shenyang Liming WP13FI engine, 6,750 afterburner thrust, and also at the same time has all the different CCIPs and RPs, plus a radar, which is incredibly similar to the MiG-21's one. What this also gets access to, though, is something which I believe is kind of new to the Chinese tree, at least by name. It has access to the PL-7s. Now, the PL-7s are just Magics, which are obviously already on the A5C and a bunch of French vehicles, but these are incredibly powerful missiles. Then again, it already had the PL-5Bs, which are incredibly powerful as well. So both of these work extremely well. So it's going to be a toss-up between which one you actually take. The PL-2s are rubbish, so don't bother with them. Then you've got bombs, rockets that you can bring along, but this is much more of an air superiority fighter with access to countermeasures, with access to air-to-airs, and of course the 23mm Type 23-3 as well on top of it. It also has a unique cockpit compared to the other MiG-21s, which is a surprise, but pretty nice to see. The Italians get access to the F-104S TAF. This is a SAD machine. It's pretty much it's an F-104 which has access to different weaponry. Still doesn't get countermeasures though. The Italians right now do not have a rank 8 vehicle, but since they've got a rank 7 premium, I think it's fair to say that either this will get moved up to rank 8 or they will just add a rank 8. But no countermeasures for this. And instead what it gets is a bunch of AIM-9P missiles. You can bring 6 of them, plus the gun, so you don't have to lose the gun for it. But I've got to say, I haven't had a great setup with the AIM-9Ps. I've used them on the F1 before, and they haven't been great. They generally burn out before they get to targets, unfortunately. but you can get 6 of them. You can also bring along AIM-7Es if you want to, and the main reason why the TAF is the way it is, though, is because of its ground-pounding potential. It has incendiaries, it has a bunch of different bombs, and also rockets as well, including a 2,000-pound LDGP bomb. So this is the premium for the Italians. Obviously, not great that it doesn't have access to good old countermeasures. The only one which doesn't, by the way, right now. France does not have anything new. Sweden does not have anything new, but Israel does. Israel has 2 vehicles. It gets the F-16A Nets. This is, at least right now, seems a complete copy of the F-16A, which is in the American tree. The only difference is the name, the skin, and also no access to a fuel tank. A drop tank, I should say. So it gets the Mavericks, it gets the rockets, it gets the incendiaries, the dumb bombs, and also the AIM-9Ls, all good old 6 of them. So this can be used as a multi-role or can be used as an air superiority fighter. Does get all the 60 countermeasures as well on top of it. And one of the interesting things is it's actually after the Kafir C7. So we'll have to see what goes here. Maybe some people can have a think. To research the F-16A nets, they have gracefully added the Kafir Canard. This is probably one of the weaker premiums at the higher tiers, based off a earlier Kafir, has access to the J79G17 engine, and then this also has CCIPs and RPs of the wazoo. It has a pretty decent radar on it, but probably not the best around the place, and also access to some pretty weak armaments. So it has a internal set of 30mm DEFers, and then on top of that you can bring either 2 AIM-9Gs or 2 AIM-9Ds, plus bombs, rockets, or guns. So definitely weak compared to some of the other competition that we've seen, which is very sad. So yeah, that is pretty much all of the aviation. There is a ton of little tidbits of information on certain vehicles, such as the fact that the Yak-38M now has 2 4R60s instead of 2, same with the Yak-38, but what I'll do is I'll put that in a separate video that we'll do later on. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Forge, Siegebreak, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, and also Sem Arslan, Wilkski, Uncle Bean, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.